Okay, today's learning target is I can subtract decimal values to the millions with regrouping using multiple strategies, including the standard algorithm. And we are going to focus on this video on the standard algorithm because in 5th grade, this is what you're going to use the most. You might also use a place value chart or a hundreds or thousands or even 10,000s grid to do this. You might also see in some of your practice today that some of this subtracting is done in maybe expanded form or word form, and you're pulling those values out in standard form to work with them. Okay, first one we are going to do is right here. So we have 45,612 hundred thousandths minus 398 thousandths. Okay, so this is going to look a lot like adding decimals or like normal subtraction. Now, the only thing that is super duper different from what we did with decimal addition is when we do subtraction, order matters. We cannot subtract this larger value from this smaller value. So when we were doing our addition and we went to rewrite our values vertically on top of each other to add, the order didn't matter. Now here order matters. So make sure that you pay attention. We're going to make this one our first term in our vertical writing and this our second. Okay, and as a 5th grader, you should be able to realize when you make a mistake in this, you should be able to see that when you go to subtract. Okay, so I'm going to write my 45,612. And remember, we're going to try really hard to line up our place value holder. So if you need to even make yourself a little place value chart with your tenths and your hundreds and your thousands and your 10,000s and your 100,000s, you totally can do that. I'm also going to do my decimal for my number I'm going to subtract and a decimal for our difference, not our sum, but our difference, because we're going to be subtracting and I'm going to make sure to put that subtraction sign there. I have seen so many adults, including myself, and 5th graders make a mistake on this because they start writing this down and they're all excited to get it all on their paper and then they add instead of subtract. And we're going to subtract from that 398 thousandths. Now, I also want to encourage you, I'm going to do this in red, to fill in any spaces that don't have a decimal aligned in it with zeros. And this is especially important when we do subtraction. Okay, so we're going to start here, and I'm going to use purple for our difference, which means the answer to a subtraction problem. So 2 minus 0 is 2, 1 minus 0 is 1. And I'm going to try kind of hard to keep these lined up. So my 100,000ths and my 10,000ths place, and then I'm going to get to thousands. Now here you notice I cannot borrow or I cannot take away 8 from 6. It doesn't work. So I'm going to come over here to my hundredths, and I'm going to regroup. This is just like normal subtraction. I'm going to take away one of those hundredths, but I'm not really taking it away. I'm just regrouping it into 10 thousandths. So I added my 1 in the tens place. So now we have 16 minus 8, which is 8. I'm going to have to keep doing that here. So I can't take away 4 from 9. So I'm going to have to come over to my tenths. And just like you do with whole number subtraction, I'm going to regroup one of these into 10 hundredths. So 14 minus 9 is 5. And then here we have 3 minus 3, which is 0. Okay, so our answer is, let's practice saying this out loud again, because I know we're still working on that with decimals. I'm going to use my highlighter. Ready? So you're just going to read this whole number. So don't say 0 and, just say 5,812. And then we know this 2 is in the hundred thousandths place. Ready? 5,812. And then you say the name of that place value holder, which is hundred thousandths. Wonderful. Okay, now we're going to do a hard with decimals. We get into a lot of regrouping and borrowing. So I'm going to pull this down and you're going to see our next problem. Why don't you go ahead and put this one on your whiteboard with me? Okay, we are going to do, I'm going to go ahead and write my decimals first. Remember, this kind of helps us stay organized because no matter how much regrouping, either with addition you do or how much borrowing with subtraction you do, the decimals that you are using are never going to move. They are still going to separate your wholes from your pieces of your wholes. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is going to be our first term and our second term. Okay, so I'm going to write these in green. So I'm going to write 18 and 6/10, and from that we are going to subtract 861 thousandths. I also want you to make sure you fill in a 0 and a 0 and a 0 and a 0. Okay? Now the reason why we do that, and one of the big reasons why, is because, like I said, our brain likes to look and search for patterns, and sometimes before I put those zeros in, here's what I see a lot of 5th graders do. They look at this and they're like, oh, 1 minus 0 is 1. 6 minus 0 is 6. But that's not really the case here. We need to do some regrouping to do this subtraction. Okay, so I'm going to put those zeros there. Now there are 2 ways to do this. Okay, so when we go to borrow here, we can't take away 1 from 0. So we cannot come over to borrow from this 0. Okay, so here's the way I prefer to do this. I like to come all the way over here to my tenths or wherever I can borrow from. I'm going to turn this into a 5 and take 1 away, and this into a 10. Okay, now some people already do that regrouping kind of in one step. I want you to try and do it the way that I'm doing it right now and model this. So we're going to borrow from this 10 now, and we're going to take 1 away. So we're going to turn this into a 9. And now one of those hundredths turns into 10 thousandths. So it's just like the same regrouping you're doing. Now you do 10 minus 1 is 9. 9 minus 6 is 3. And we cannot do 5 minus 8. So I'm going to come over here to my ones. I'm going to take one of those away and regroup it into 10 hundredths. And 15 minus 8 is 7. And we have 7 minus 0 and 1 minus 0. Okay, now, we really haven't talked about this a whole super duper lot, but one way that you can check your work is by kind of think of number bonds. So for example, if you start in 1st grade and Miss Miller is like, or Miss Todd is like, hey, 1st graders, let's do some number bonds. And you have the number 5 you are trying to make. And you make a number bond with 3 and 2. What we can do is add these 2 pieces together and we should get 5. Okay, so the same thing should be happening here. Pretend like we start our number bond with 18 and 6/10. We find this missing piece. If I take one of these away, I should be able to figure that out. Okay, so if we add together, I'm going to use yellow to kind of highlight this. If we add these 2 pieces together, these 2 add-ins, what we should get is our original number that we started with, that 18 and 6/10. So you can go ahead and do that. Now I know I'm going to see some regrouping here. So 9 plus 1 is 10. And let's see, 7 plus 3 is another 10. And 9 plus 7 is 16. Don't forget your decimal place. And then 7 plus 1 is 8. And is that what we were looking for? Is that what we started with? Yay! Okay, that's going to be it for today for this video. We're also going to work on estimation a little bit today.